Yo, what is going on, guys? Dr. Schwaz here. Welcome back to another video discussion. Um, Today I'm going to be discussing class recommendations and tips for all Operation 4 Hives. So this will be the final discussion video in the series of videos I've done where I went through all the operations and discussed the Hives and basically spoke about what classes I recommend bringing, some honorable mentions for each hive, and for this video I'm going to be doing Operation 4 Hives, so that'll include the Malfunction, the Ambush, the Onslaught, the Gatekeepers, the Split, and the Mist. And unfortunately there are no hives after Operation 4. In one Op 5 launch coalition basically said they're not working on Escape anymore. They're going to focus more on PvE, the other side of PvE, horde maps and versus events and stuff like that. So fortunately, there's no more new hives. It's just the 31 that they launched, and I kind of find that kind of unfortunate. But without further ado, let's get started, and I'm going to start discussing the Malfunction real quick here. Alrighty, guys. Before I get started with the discussion, I wanted to mention that on the channel we have a playlist called Escape Hive Tutorials, which basically has all 31 hives mastered as a group with narration on it. So if you want to look at specifically an in-depth walkthrough on a specific hive, feel free to go to that playlist. In this video, I'm just going to be discussing each hive, the weapons, the supply rooms, what's in each hive, what's available, what classes I recommend bringing to master it as a group. And I'll have the map overheads of each hive, each chapter or act as I'm talking about it. And then I'll have some gameplay of the master runs as well in the background, just to go along with what I'm saying. So let's get started here with the Malfunction. Alright, so the Malfunction is the first hive in Operation 6. The mutators are shown here on this map overhead. We got more health, more lethal, standard mutators. Vampiric enemies, so enemies gain health as they do damage to you. Not a very severe mutator. I've noticed it's not that significant. I don't have the effect of it. Shock snipers, so be careful about that. Regen penalty, so you regen at half your speed. Freezing Peacemaker bullets and Iron Man. So the Freezing Peacemaker bullets is definitely the one you want to watch out for. Want to bring characters that have extra health or damage resistance, so be wary of that. So when you spawn in the first act, there's going to be a long shot in the back, which is why I recommend bringing a marksman. As you can see, in my top 5 class recommendations, I have marksman there. And then you're going to have a bunch of rejects early on. I also recommend bringing an infiltrator because in the first supply room, once you jump up the ladder, there's going to be a Nasher and a bunch of ammo crates. Also an enforcer for purposes just to have a weapon, I guess. You're not really going to do a lot of damage with it. Then as you move forward through the hive, there's another area with ammo. A frag grenade, Marksa, Retro Lancer is available. Another enforcer is also available. And then there's a Venom fan for 45 seconds that you can pull. That'll help you in the room prior to the safe room. So I'll show all that as I'm talking here. I also recommend bringing a tactician. Now he won't be very useful in the first act because he doesn't really have a weapon to fight with until later. There isn't like a boom or a drop he can use or find in the first act, but in the second act, you're going to have Devastators or a Sentinel, so you can easily get a salvo, or underneath the staircase in the second act, which I'll show soon, there is a Lancer GL that you can use, which is great. So I recommend bringing a tactician. Nomad can be really good here because of his execution build, so you can put enemies in fear, uh, using that build. Really good to bring. In this hive, I also recommend Blade Master. Now, um, you're gonna have to wait on the Venom, obviously, for that class. This is not a faster Venom hive, so may have to wait for Lonnie to be effective, but she can be really good. There's a lot of large enemies areas, especially the fight at the very end, where she can be very handy. So, moving on to Act 2, see what you got there. So, in the safe room, you're going to get overkill ammo and M-bar ammo, and then a retro lancer. So, Nomad can find the retro lancer very useful. You can use that to retro charge enemies and then put nearby enemies in fear. You can get the M-bar as Foz or Marksman. Obviously, the sniper, the long shot is way better, but having an M-bar is good in case you don't want to use long shot ammo for a particular situation. Also good for taking down the Sentinel shield or a Guardian shield. Um, so in the second half, you're gonna get either a Sentinel, so that'll give you a salvo for your tactician, and then of course there's a GL under the bridge, like I mentioned, or under the staircase behind it, which I'll show there. You see it on the map overhead as well. As you move forward, there's a Venom fan for 60 seconds as you pull it. Then you're going to fight a bunch of enemies like Dead Eyes, the Stump maybe, some Devastators, things like that. And you'll find some frags and a Marxa in that area too. What's unique in Operation 4 is there's a medical bay room. So basically it's like a safe room checkpoint area where if you pull it, it basically gives you like a free life. Like if you wipe, you can respawn in that room. And in that room, you have a Markset Retro and 3 large ammo crates. It also triggers an achievement if you've never done it before. So this is one of the hives that has it. Know it real quick. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the Malfunction. I also recommend some honorable mentions. You can bring a gunner. Uh, because he has cards like freeze resist and ultimate battery and team resist, he can be really useful, especially in the fight at the very end. Concussive explosive can be very crucial in certain areas, especially at the fight at the very end, which gets really crazy and dicey sometimes. So gunner can be really useful. You can bring in demolitions, but the thing with demolitions is his ammo. It doesn't have ammo capacity anymore. So if you bring a demolitions, bring a tactician as well, I would recommend. And you can also bring the custom Lancer GL card as well, since there's a GL in the second half that he can use. Veteran can be also brought here. There's a retro Lancer in the first part, and in the supply room. So he can rain hell, and maybe in the last chapter, especially right before the end. You can bring a pilot too. Really good in clearing out certain areas, maybe the area right before the safe room or the area right before the LZ. I've seen have been useful there too. And then of course a brawler. Any situation where you need a distraction, the brawler is also great to bring because of his survivability and damage resistance. So that's pretty much my discussion on the Malfunction. We're going to move on to the next hive. Alrighty guys, so the ambush, the mutators for that are Incendiary Jubies, more health, more lethal, Ghost Pouncers, Ultra Stopping Power, which is Yikes, and Reflective Shell Science, which is another Yikes, and Iron Man. So Ultra Stopping Power, basically you go into slow motion as soon as you get shot at. Pouncers ghost within 10 meters. All the ghost mutators are buggy, just be careful and mark pouncers if you hear them. The incendiary jubies, as you move up the hive, they'll be spawning behind you pretty much as you move up every couple of rooms. Just be careful to hammer burst them down, pistol them down, melee them, whatever have you, to get rid of them. The unique one I want to talk about is reflective shell science. So what basically that is All the scions, and this includes wardens too, when they get injured, they will turn blue like Clayton's ultimate or Gunner's ultimate, and they will reflect their damage back to you. So be careful not to shoot at them, especially with bleed characters. Be careful. Do not do too much damage to them too fast, otherwise you will go down or maybe even bleed out. So be careful with that. And one tip about reflective shell scions I want to mention, maybe I mentioned in the video, I'm not sure. Um, so it says when injured scions will reflect incoming damage. You want to make sure that you only injure them to half health. So when they drop to below half health or at half health, they will reflect, put the reflective shell on. So that's why I think bringing classes like Marksman is really good, because he can just one-shot the Scion and he doesn't have to worry about the reflective shell downing him. So that's really good. Recommend bringing a Tactician, because there is a boom shot in the first couple of rooms somewhere, and depending on the spawn you pull, you're going to either encounter drones and snipers first, or drones and grenadiers first. So I'd recommend bringing a marksman or a infiltrator as well. When we did the tutorial, I think we brought in demolitions too, because there's lots of explosive weapons available. There's a boom shot in the first act, and then I think tactician gets or demolition gets, and then in the second chapter there's another one in the supply rooms that he can grab. And then there's plenty of ammo too, from the scions and stuff, that you can actually bring both classes and be pretty useful there. I recommend bringing a brawler too. He's really good at distracting the juvies and pouchers, keeping them away from your team. So he can be really good there. As far as supply rooms, you can see on the map here, you get a frag and a retro in the first one. Then the second and third supply room, which will be down the staircases, you'll have a torque bow and a frag in one, and then you'll have a long shot and flashbangs in the other. And then you'll be accompanied by a bunch of juvies and pouncers that will spawn behind the staircases. And then that'll be basically Act 1. You're going to fight some drop shot scion or something, a couple enemies prior to the safe room. Honestly, if you run out of time, you can just run past them if you're quick enough. But if you want to fight them, you still can, obviously. So in Act 2, the safe room, you're going to have explosive crates, 2 of them, and then like 6 ammo boxes. So you can load up on ammo, especially the marksman or the anchor, whoever you bring. Can be really useful. Then outside the safe room, I would recommend planting a flashbang or a frag or a shock, whatever you have. A frag if you have one, because the juvies will spawn in there or just outside of it as you move up, so that you can get some kills there. And then you'll fight some elite drones, elite hunters, whatever, pouncers before the double supply rooms. Before the end, the supply room on the right is going to have long shots and ensigns. This is the one on the left in the second half. It's going to have boom shot that someone can backpack, or you can get extra ammo for your Keegan, tactician, or demolitions, or whoever is going to carry a boom shot. Honorable mentions for this hive on the ambush. I think a pilot wouldn't hurt. Pretty much get drop shot scions very often, so you can bring the hammer card and be useful in that situation. Also going to be really useful before the safe room, and even at this fight prior to the end, using the silverback. Just be careful with the bleeding vulture to, be wary of the reflector shell scion stuff. So I also see a gunner here, really good, because he can use his ultimate, and there is a torque bow also in the second half. You have to wait until you get a torque bow, so it's a rated edge. You can do some extra damage. Again, be careful with the bleed. Just be careful with the reflective shell scions for sure. if you go down, just let your teammate know. Like I said, when you bleed an enemy right to halfway health point, that's going to activate the reflective shell, and that'll pretty much is what is going to down you. So, Blade Master, I recommend too. There isn't faster venom, so you may have to wait on the venom for that class to be useful. But again, when you're using the ultimate, be careful on the science. You can go down right while you're using your ultimate, so really good on getting the health down to halfway point, then let his shield come down. Or what can be a really good combo too is the Blade Master can get the Scion health down, and then before it turns blue, you can get a marksman to finish it off with a headshot or something like that. And then Anchor can be really good here too. He has Bolt Talk Bleed too, so of course you have to be careful about the Scion still. But for taking out everything else, the Jubies, the Pouncers, the Elite Drones, he can be very helpful as well. So the top 5 classes, again, I recommend bringing. So of course you're not limited to only bringing those. Bring whatever classes you want. Bring however many of the classes you want. It is totally up to you. When we mastered it, we brought Tactician, Demolitions, and a Marksman. Infiltrator and a Brawler is also great for this hive too. And that is the ambush. We're going to move on to the next hive, which is the Onslaught. Alrighty guys, so the Onslaught is the next hive I'm going to be discussing. So this hive is mutators are shown in the top left. You got poison drones, more health, more lethal, shock grenadiers, longer recharge, ghost heavies, and Iron Man. So the longer recharge mutator is only on a couple of hives, and you only want to bring classes with short ultimates so that you don't have to wait super long to get your ultimate back. When you come out of the spawn room, there's going to be 2 turrets, and you want two of the players to get on them. The third player, preferably, is a marksman. They're going to go into the supply room to the left, and then we'll get a long shot, which will be very useful throughout the hive. They can snipe the snipers that spawn across, the 3 snipers that spawn across the way, while your other 2 teammates are mowing down all the jubies and drones, DR1s, whatever spawns, depending on what spawn you get. This is the first time to have, I believe, alternate poppers. So you can either have shock poppers or incendiary poppers. The hive previously did have incendiary poppers as a mutator, but this one has multiple types other than frag. Here we got frag poppers, as you can see in the spawn here. With frag poppers, you get grenadiers, and then with shock poppers, you will get DR1 protectors. So with that said, in the supply room to the left, you have a long shot. So you want to bring a marksman. Will be really crucial and very cool class to bring for this hive, especially in the second half. Do you want to take out a lot of enemies? Honestly, sometimes the second half is really difficult, and if you're looking for just a completion, you can probably just run through it. But if you're trying to kill everybody, I'd probably recommend some different classes. But Gunner is really good here. He has a short ultimate, like 2.5 minutes or something. You can use the salvos and stuff that you will get later on. Really useful to fight the enemies prior to the safe room, like the staircase. He's got a reflective shredder. He's got heavy capacity. He can take advantage of the heavy weapons that you'll get. So you're gonna get either salvo science or you're gonna get devastators in the second half. So either way, you're gonna get some sort of heavy weapon where he'll be useful. I recommend bringing, for this particular hive, if you're running a gunner, I believe we brought. Let me see here. Team resist, especially in the second half when you run through it, took the LZ, so your teammates can survive. Recommend bringing a brawler. That really helps, especially when you run through the second half. There's so many enemies. Um, Brawler can torch tackle the elite drones, whatever's in your way, so you can run through that second half. Infiltrator, I recommend bringing two, especially if you're going to fight the entire hive, because no matter what spawn you get, you're going to get a Grenadier or a DR1 Protector, so you're going to get a Nasher Overkill, and it'll be good to go there from the get-go. There'll be 3 ammo rooms for the safe room. Each have ammo boxes, so you can resupply your ammo there. So Infiltrator is really good here too. Also recommend bringing a Nomad, because there is a Lancer in the first supply room at the beginning. You can bring a Nomad, run the execution build with Phase and Menace, and go to town, chainsaw the Jubies, jump back, put enemies in fear, and be useful to your team in that way as well. So those are the top 5 classes again: Marksman, Gunner, Brawler, Infiltrator, and Nomad. As far as honorable mentions for the Onslaught, so there are a couple. There isn't Faster Venom, but I recommend Blade Master. Really good on taking out a lot of enemies in the Venom when Venom catches up. Especially, I mean, with her ultimate, she can take out so many Scions and DR1s. So I would recommend bringing a Blade Master. It's not as important as some of the other classes because there's longer recharge and a couple other things, but still wouldn't hurt bringing that class. Anchor can be really good too. The Bolt-Type lead to take out some of the damage. He can also be pretty good with a sniper with his shield as well. Plenty of ammo too. Veteran can be useful here too. The Lancer early on. You can chainsaw enemies to get his ultimate back faster. You can use his ultimate to clear certain areas of the hive faster as well. I have Tacticians as an honorable mention. Now, that may seem counterintuitive, and the reason why I have that is because there isn't a boom shot or an explosive weapon that he has access to immediately. So he kind of needs to be carried either to the safe room or before the safe room, depending on the spawn you get. You can get salvo science prior if you have, I believe, the frag popper spawn. And then after the safe room, you have the possibility of getting salvos as well. And then there's frags and stuff in the supply rooms there. I have images showing that basically. Ammo crates in the safe room. If you fight the second half, definitely bring a tactician. There's a lot of enemies, a warden, lots of elite drones, pouncers, bastions, scions, DR1, not scions, but heavies, DBs, DR1s of sorts with bastions on them. So I recommend bringing a tactician, especially if you're going to fight in the second half. One thing I want to mention also before I'm done here on the Onslaught is the turrets that you'll access in Act 1 and Act 2, or on the helipad, wherever the turrets are. They do not give you ult charge. So, just letting you know, if you want to do you want to recharge your ult, doing damage on the turret does not help your ultimate recharge any faster. So, just going to let you know that. If you want to deal as much damage, try to deal as much damage as you can outside of the turrets. So, and that is pretty much it for the Onslaught discussion. I will move on to the next hive. Alright guys, so the Gatekeepers is the next one I'm going to talk about. I remember when this hive came out, me and my buddies had a lot of trouble with it initially, but looking back, I don't really understand why. I think we didn't get the strategy, but this is a unique hive. The only hive to have a snatcher and a swarmac in it, depending on the spawn you get, of course. So the hive is called the Gatekeepers because you have to There's going to be a series of fights that you have to, encounters that you have to kill certain enemies in order to pass a literal gate to move on forward through the hive. And then in the first act, there's two sort of fights that you have to pass in order to get to the safe room. And then in the second act, there are again two more fights that you have to pass through, or encounters that you have to beat in order to move forward. The mutators, more health, more gatekeeper health, more lethal gatekeepers, more lethal poison drones, regen penalty, and vampiric gatekeepers. Like the vampiric gatekeepers mutator, since they have so much more health than you do, when they damage you, they don't really heal as much. So, like I've said before, vampiric mutators, they're pretty much, you can pretty much remove them from your head and pretend they don't exist because they're really not that they don't impact the game that much, in my opinion. So, anyway, so when you spawn in, you're gonna have 3 lancers in the spawn room. Probably want one. All 3 of y'all can pick that up. So classes I recommend bringing, since you have 3 lancers available, Nomad can be great here. To change all the jubies and the drones during the years they'll spawn early on. There also is in that room an overkill, a hammer burst, a long shot, a mark shot, and a shock grenade in the ammo boxes. So the overkill, pretty much infiltrator rings a bell right there. So you can bring an infiltrator, should be really good here too. I've already mentioned Nomad because of the Lancer chainsawing execution build. Marksman is also great here because there's a long shot on Marksa, so you can use, his X-ray, his ultimate, one shot, DR1s, things like that. And then I also recommend bringing a tactician because now you're not going to have an explosive weapon immediately, but sooner or later you will. So in the first encounter, you're going to get it's usually 2 scions that you have to kill. Maybe one of them's a salvo, one of them's an ice. Maybe you have a salvo early. Tactician can take advantage of that. But if that's not the case, in the second encounter before the safe room, you are guaranteed either a sentinel and a guardian, so there's a salvo from the sentinel, or you're guaranteed DR1s, devastators, and DR1 oppressors, so you're guaranteed a salvo from the devastator. Either way, tactician is great. You have a salvo, venom boost. You can resupply your salvo ammo and your teammates' ammo. Great class to bring for this hive. So yeah, that's pretty much the first act. You're gonna have, so you're either gonna fight like some pouncers and a scion, or like 2 scions, and then you're gonna fight either sentinel and guardian the second encounter, or bastion, 2 bastions on 2 oppressors and a devastator, something like that. Anyway, basically you just have to kill the enemies in that room to advance. There will be more enemies that spawn as you walk past certain thresholds, which I discussed in the video, so if you want more info on that, feel free to watch the tutorial for the Gatekeepers. There is no faster venom, so you can kind of take your time and fight in each area if you choose. So the second act, you're going to have, the first encounter, you're going to have a snatcher or a matriarch. So the funny thing here is if you bring a gunner, or really any class with a chainsaw, lancer, you can chainsaw the snatcher, and it's really funny and it looks hilarious. But if you have a matriarch, obviously you can't do that. So after you deal with them, then you're gonna go to a supply room with explosive crates and an ammo box, and then there'll be a cog tag in there because that's the only place you're gonna find one. And then you're gonna fight the Swarmak with a ridiculous amount of health, which I recommend bringing a Tactician. Infiltrator can one-shot it if you have an active and you use your cloak and you shoot the correct blister under its neck, I believe. You can one-shot the Swarmak. Um, so that's really handy. Uh, of course, Tactician and JD's ultimate can be just as effective. I've seen Gunner's ultimate be really effective on the Swarmak as well, because the rockets can shoot the Gunner. You can use his ultimate to reflect bullets back and bleed him, and then from the bleed damage, it'll recharge his ultimate again, and then you use it again, and then it'll kill the Swarmak. So that's really useful there. So classes I recommend on the Gatekeepers, and this really is depending on the spawn. Like I mentioned already, classes I recommend: Marksman, because there's a long shot available to you early. Infiltrator, there's an overkill available to you early. Nomad, because there's Lancer, you can use it to chainsaw enemies, put them in fear, help your team out. Tactician and Demolitions I recommend because of the salvos and heavy weapons available to you. Especially in the second half, there is a boomshot and torque bow in the room where you would fight the Snatcher or the Matriarch, so you can get that as well. Plenty of explosive crates too in the second half as well. In the safe room and in the ammo room and in the rooms around as well. So you can keep your tact and demo happy. Honorable mentions for this hive. I think you can bring a Blade Master. Now, melee characters are always useful. I just think on hives with the faster venom off, other classes seem to shine, I think. So, with of course Blade Master, you just have to wait on the venom. And then, Lonnie can go to town. So, there isn't a warden or anything like where she can have a breaker mace, but she is plenty strong enough with her melee anyway, so. And these are, an all Operation 4 hives are basically robots only for the most part. So, just want to let you know. I don't know if I mentioned that already, but Gunnar is really good here. He can take out a lot of the enemies like the Peacemakers, the Deadeyes, using his ultimate. Really good at taking out the Guardian or Sentinel in the first chapter as well. Obviously great for the Swarmak fight at the end. The only issue is, have the Swarmak actually aim at you during your ultimate. Sometimes, enemies don't do that. I recommend bringing a pilot too. Really helpful in the fight at the end. Even after you kill the Swarmak, there's a bunch of Bob Hoppers, elite drones you have to kill still. It's really good there. And then the Brawler class is also great because he can tackle, the Pouncers, the Scions, Juvies, whatever. Great distraction for your team. Pretty good class to bring, of course. Again, top 5 for the Gatekeepers: Marksman, Infiltrator, Nomad, Tactician, Demolition. So you're not limited to bringing those classes. Bring whatever class you like. Those are just the classes that prefer based on the weapons that are available to you in the hive and the enemies that are available to you in the hive. So feel free to experiment with the classes that work for you and let me know how that goes. And I will discuss the next hive, which will be the split. Alrighty guys, the split is the next hive. Probably one of the hardest hives that came out. I don't think any hive has made me as angry as this one when it launched. So let's get started here. The mutator's freezing sniper bullets. So the evil mutator from Ice Queen returns. More health, more lethal, faster venom, regen penalty, vampiric enemies, and Iron Man. The classes I recommend here, I recommend a Tactician. Of course, he won't be useful at the very beginning because you have to cross the bridge and fight the Deadeyes and Jubies or Rejects or whatever you have you. But in the supply room to the right, there's a torque bow and frags and explosive ammo that he will use. to move forward. And then if you take the right path, there are fabricators, 3 fabricators. You can see it on the map. There's a boom and a drop shot in one, and then a geo in the other. So he has access to those weapons. Albeit you do have to fight enemies to get there and get access to those weapons, but he does have access to those explosive weapons. So Tactician is really good here. Brawler is really good as well, especially in the very beginning to get you through that first fight to get to the supply rooms in the beginning. Also, an incredible distraction, especially in the second half, because there's chaos, especially in the room prior to the end. You can run around, tackle the DR1s, be a good distraction for the Sentinels to get them off your teammates for a second. Sentinels and Guardians, whatever. Chaos is in the final room. So, yeah, Brawler is really good, really tanky, lots of damage resistance. As long as he's running and has his ultimate, he's pretty tanky, so I recommend bringing him. Gunner is great for this Hive. Recommend bringing freeze resist so you don't get immediately frozen from an M-bar shot. Really good Hive for that. There's, of course, you can bring the Mulcher cards. If you want to buy the Mulcher from the Fabricator, you can. There's the salvos from the Sentinels prior to the safe room. Well, no, after the safe room there is some Sentinels, but if you're running a Serrated Edge, he's got a torque bow you can use as well. Plenty of heavy weapons, heavy charger, heavy capacity, really good, going to be really good for Clayton or Gunner. Especially very useful prior to the safe room to take out a lot of the Deadeyes and Peacemakers and the double Guardians, I believe, prior to the safe room. Really good there. Let's see. Other classes recommend Marksman. So there is no long shots on this Hive, which is kind of lame, which makes it really hard actually, but so you could run his M-bar cards and stuff like that. Maybe use his ultimate with the M-bar. It's not going to be as effective as a long shot because the M-bar is really weak in this game. So you can bring along Marksman too. There'll be plenty of ammo, plenty of M-bars from the Deadeyes that you will kill, and there are M-bars in one of the supply rooms. You'll see it on the map overhead when I talk about it. The Demolitions class, I also recommend bringing 2. Is in my top 5 as well. Again, like I said before, with Demolitions, his problem is ammo capacity. So if you bring a demo, you probably want to bring a Tact 2. Albeit, though, there is plenty of explosives for both players. Especially if you take the right pathway in the first act, there's fabricators that way. If you take the left path, there's venom fans and medical bays there too. But 90% of the time I do the split if we take the right path because of the extra ammo. The only reason we go to the left path is to pull the double venom fans, which will add 90 seconds of total time. So it'll give you more time to fight before you choke to death in the venom. But anyway, yeah, Demolitions is really good to bring. There's a Lancer GL he can buy, and then he can buy a boom, bring custom boom, custom GL, go to town, perfect for JD. Let's see, second act, I remember safe room's got M-bar and torque bow ammo, so your Marksman and your Gunner or Tactician can reload their bullets there. I find it really useful for the Gunner to use their ultimate right outside the safe room to kill a lot of the elite drones, Deadeyes, Protectors, whatever have you out there. Makes their job so much easier. And again, the second act is also split in 2 paths, hence the name of the Hive is called the split. The right path will have 2 fabricators with a salvo and a tri-shot, and the left path will have a bridge, a drawbridge where you have to pull the handle and wait for the bridge to lift so you can cross it, and then there'll be a venom fan for 60 seconds, The bridge only takes 30 seconds to lift up. I have that on the map overhead. You can see it. Then there's a medical bay across, another venom fan for 60 seconds, and then there'll be a door that you have to open as you move forward. You want to make sure you shut that door because the sentinels from the other side of the map will come all the way around and kill you. Had to learn that the hard way. Second half has got double sentinels on the left side you have to kill. So you can get the salvo for JD, a salvo for Keegan, salvo for Clayton or Gunner too. So again, plenty of explosive ammo. So for the classes. Honorable mentions. Blade Master is good here, especially in a lot of. Again, you have to wait on the Venom. Can be really good, especially at the fight at the very end where there's like a million Guardians, Sentinels, DR1s at the very end. Chaos. Really good for the fight at the LZ. Even prior to the safe room, you can use their ultimate. The shock chain and kill the Guardians, so it can be really useful there. The only thing is you gotta wait on the Venom. There is faster Venom, so you don't have to wait too long. I've seen a pilot be useful here too. There is a drop shot. Well, I don't believe there is a drop shot actually. Well, there is a drop shot in the second fabricator that you can buy. You can run the hammer card, use it to stun enemies. It can be useful. I have it in honorable mentions. I think Gunner is more useful because he has stun for all explosives, and he can get a salvo, a drop shot, a boom, and stun them from within 15 meters. So the only advantage pilot has is you can stun with the drop shot, but within any range. So it'd be real useful there, especially stunning the Guardians, keeping them still, so your explosive classes can bleed them out with the salvo or the GL or whatever they're using. You can bring an infiltrator. The only reason I have it as an honorable recommendation or mention is there are in the first medical bay there's an Asher, and in the second medical bay in the second half there's an overkill. Because I don't think you pull anything with a shotgun until the very end, or in the second half. See, you probably don't want to bring a class that's that powerful and carry them that far until they can get a weapon they can use. But in the medical bay there is an Asher, so if you want to wipe once and then get an Asher and then get some ammo, you could bring an infiltrator. Of course, you have to make it to that point. But and then another class I recommend for honorable mentions, Anchor, could be good here too. His shield, very useful to his teammates, especially in the very second half, before the end. He can deploy his shield, and you can have your Keegan, your tactician or demolitions just firing salvos through the shield and just raining hell on all the enemies prior to the LZ. He can be great there. Dealing damage himself, yeah, he can be good there too. There's plenty of ammo, especially if you're being a tactician. The Anchor is all good. Again, top 5 classes for the split. Tactician, lots of heavy weapons. Demolitions, again, lots of heavier and explosive weapons. Marksman, there's an M bar. He's the only one who can actually do decent damage with it. I guess Robotics Expert will do okay damage with it, but Marksman is stronger. Brawler for tackling the Jubies, tackling the Deadeyes and the smaller robot enemies, and being a distraction and the room prior to the safe room and the room prior to the LZ can be really good. Gunner with his ultimate and with his heavy capacity and stunning ability can also be very helpful on this Hive. Alright, with that said, I'm going to move on to the last Hive, which is the Mist. Alrighty guys, the Mist is the final Hive in Operation 4. So the mutators are strength in numbers, so that means you have more sires that spawn, but they have less health individually, so they're easier to kill, which is cool. More health, more lethal, freezing grenadiers, so be careful about that. Regen penalty and reflective shell science is back, and then Iron Man. So when you spawn into the hive, there's gonna be 3 lancers in the supply room, or in the spawn room, sorry. And then outside of that room, there's gonna be a drop shot, a long shot, and a Marxa available too. So I recommend bringing a tactician. Um, you have a drop shot early, of course, but later on in the hive, there are opportunities to get boom shots, salvos, Lancer GL. So tactician is great to bring because of the presence of a explosive weapon that early. Bring marksman as well. There's a long shot right outside the spawning room. And then also a Marxa and some supply and some ammo boxes so you can load up on sniper ammo really quickly. Nomad is great here too. He's got the Lancers and the Marxa. Marxa, because the Marxa Master, Nomad can do more damage with the Marxa. But typically in Escape, I think the Nomad really shines with his execution build, so you can chainsaw Jubies, Grenadiers, whatever, put them in fear using his execution builds. So Nomad can be great on this hive. And then Gunner can be also really good here. You can run freeze resist, so you won't get frozen by the Grenadiers, or you can run his heavy capacity stuff like that. He can be really good too. Really good also prior to the safe roam to take out some of the enemies there. Also, he can help his team out pretty well with team resist. Like if you're in a dangerous situation, he can use his ultimate so that y'all can get past a certain area and not take much damage. He can be really good there. There are tri-shots and multers available, I believe, that he can use if he needs to. Classes, honorable mentions, Blade Master. There isn't faster Venom, so you just want to wait on Blade Master. Really good on melee classes. Protector can be good here too because there's a lot of sires and he doesn't have to wait on the bleed or the venom to do bleed damage, so you can bring a Protector. Just be wary that Protector isn't as strong as Blade Master because he doesn't have the healing or the damage resistance. But I can see you bring a Protector here. Anchor can be good here too to take down some of the enemies with his Boltok bleed. Again, you got to be careful with the Scions and the Warden. In the second half, there can be a Warden that once the enemy drops to half health, they typically will reflect. So you want to make sure you don't do too much damage to them at once, so you don't down yourself or die. Brawler is really good to bring here too. A lot of Sires and Jubies that he can tackle. The Scions part, the safe roam. All the enemies prior to the end, he can be really good. Great distraction there. So in the second half, you're gonna have, like I said, you're gonna have either you're gonna get a Warden. If you get a Warden right outside the safe room, you're gonna get a carrier at the end. And if you get if you don't get anything outside the safe room, you get a Matriarch at the end, I believe. Must have spawned. With the carrier spawn at the end, you get Salvo Scions. And I believe with the Matriarch in the end, you don't. So, Tactician is great, regardless, because you already have a drop shot from earlier. If you have Salvo Spawn, that's great for fighting at the end. But yeah, pretty much the Mist was not a hard hive at all, really. I think the classes we ran when we did it, we ran a marksman. He was really useful outside the safe room to kill a lot of the elite drones and hunters and whatever, so that we could rush through that part. Uh, Tactician is great for doing a lot of damage. Gunner is great as well. Again, Nomad I recommend as well for his fear and execution build. Infiltrator is amazing too with the bleeding shotgun damage. So top 5 classes, like I said already. Infiltrator, you get a Nasher, an overkill early. Tactician, you get drop shots early. And then you get Lancer GL in the second half, supply room, salvos possibility, boom shot early, in the second half too. So I guess you could bring demolitions too. If you get the correct spawn, it could be really useful. Nomad for the Lancer, 3 Lancers in the spawning room early. You can use the execution shield build, and Gunner, especially if you pull salvos later on. Also really useful for helping the team out, and team resist, and things like that. So that is pretty much the Mist, and that is pretty much the end of my class tips and recommendations, class recommendations and tips videos for Operation 4. Yeah, pretty much let me know what y'all think. Unfortunately, they stopped making Hives after Operation 4 because they decided to focus more on maps, but then in Operation 5, which they did launch 5 maps, but Op 6 doesn't have that many, so I don't know. It's kind of unfortunate that they kind of botched Escape, I guess. It's sort of, we do have weeklies and dailies, which is kind of why I wanted to make this, so that, like, if there ever is a weekly or a daily Hive, that you know sort of what classes to bring before you jump into it. So hopefully these videos were useful to some of you guys. So anyway, before this video gets too long, I just want to say thank you all so much for watching, and have a good one. Peace.